my poker series, just poker strategy. Basically, whereas when you're playing poker, right, there just say there's $1,000 in the pot or 1,000 chips in the pot. You could risk 1,000 chips to win the pot, right? And so then you would have to be accurate 100% of the time, right? Or you could risk less and to try to achieve the same results, right? So basically, if you bet $200 or 200 chips, you might win the pot on the river, right? If because people by that point they can't get any new cards, and they they're done chasing their draws, so they're likely to fold if they don't have any chance of winning, right? So basically, if you bet $200, you could be wrong 3 times, and then as long as you're right the 4th time, you still profit $200, right? Because you would have took a chance with $600, lost 600, and then you bet $200 immediately, so that $200 came out of your pocket. And then so then when you won with the 4th bet for $200, you won, so you took a chance with the $800 in 1,000, so you're up by $200. So basically what you have to do is you have to learn how to read opponents, and you gain the best information when you're not in a hand with your opponent, right? Because they're not paying attention to you, they're paying attention to their opponents that they're competing with at that present moment, right? So if you're playing with people regularly, then you can't always do the weak soft bet on the river, because the soft bet on the river is it's tricky, because it could be like, usually when I bet the soft bet, like, well, 80-90% of the time I have a really strong hand, and I want you to raise, and I'm hoping to be able to go all in. I'm just trying to entice you. I'm trying to look like I'm trying to steal the pot, make something weak, and then I want to pounce on it like a tiger, right? So but then that being said, so 10 to 20% of the time I would be bluffing, and depending on then I'll flip it sometimes. And if they're always letting me get away with it, then I'm gonna bluff 80 to 90% of the time, and then 10 to 20% of the time I actually have it, right? Depending on your opponents, right? So if you play against your regular opponents, you're gonna see that you can't always use the same move on them. Like, you can if they're weaker opponents, you could do it all the time, right? Because the pattern, the variance in poker is so rare that these patterns, it takes like a long period of time before these hands come up again to where they'd be able to catch you. But like a flush draw or straight draw, that's fairly common, right? But so those you can't really too often, or top pair. But with full houses or flushes or straights, like those scenarios, that they come infrequently, so you could utilize those moves against your opponents, right? Whereas if you play against them off, like a more skilled opponent, you can't, it's not advised to always use the tell that you have on them every time, because they're smart, they're a good skilled opponent, they're going to catch wind, right? Because it's like your parents, they warned you that the stove or fire was hot, right? So you either were smart, everybody burned themselves, but so nobody was completely smart, but everybody burns themselves at one point with flames and heat and fire, and then we're like, oh shit, that was hot, right? But the smart person is able to feel the heat before they get burnt, and then do the most prudent thing and back away, and then not be a part of this problem, right? So if you're a teenager, or and you live in an inner city, and then now your friends are saying, hey, we're gonna go do something illegal, and they ask you to come along, to feel the heat, back away, and then don't be part of the problem. Because the thing is, when you're 18 or younger than that, you make decisions that affect your future, and you don't expect to live to be 30 until you're 30. Then you're like, shit, I fucked up when I was 18. And so there's a lot of people that are in prison now that made poor decisions just for like a minute of their life, right? They made one bad decision, and then they have to face the consequence for the rest of their life, right? Like while they're in prison, and then they get rehabilitated ideally, and then what have you. But this is about poker. So I'm just gonna pause this. I wrote 2 pages of notes here, so I'm just gonna read some of it. So this is an analogy, because like, well, basically, when you're playing poker, the money in the pot is no longer your money, right? Like you put it in the pot, you want it to be your money. Like, it doesn't matter how bad you want something, if you don't earn it or work for it or get lucky, then you don't get it, right? So that's the same case in poker. So just like when you're playing poker, you're actually going to war. In my mind, I'm going to war against my enemy. They're trying to steal my money. They're trying to make it so I can't eat as well. They're trying to take my make me thirsty or hungry or what have you, right? So in my mindset, I'm going to war against them to get my money, right, or get their money, right? They don't want their money bad enough. I'm going to take their money by bluffing, right? You know, so that being said, if you're in the MMA, you know, mixed martial arts, like if you're in the UFC, you could just say, hey, you know, I'm going to be fighting this opponent coming up. Anybody that's going to the fight, any of my fans, I want to take it, the best, the fans that provide me the best video footage of the fight from different angles. I'm going to go out for dinner or, you know, do some sort of fan encounter, right? So this way you could get, like, around ringside, you could get probably like 5 to 10 different people that give you awesome angles that they don't show you on pay-per-view of the fight, right? You're only going to see one angle, where you could get different angles and see your opponent to make better informed decisions. So that's the same thing with poker. When you're not in a hand, you can watch and learn from a different perspective, because next thing you know, your opponent, your future opponent, is making a move possibly against the current opponent of theirs that you could utilize against them in the future when they try the same move on you, right? So you learn two different things. So you learn either if they have a hand, how they play a certain scenario, or if they bluff a hand, how they bluff a certain scenario. So then you're able to insulate yourself. Because the one thing about poker is we tend to get greedy, and everybody does, right? So when you try to go for the juggler all the time, like a lion, sometimes you risk too much, and the wildebeest will injure the lion, right? So you have to know you got to pick your spots, right? So like, you know, you're thinking, wow, I have a full house. You know, most of the time you have a full house, you're like, yeah, I'm getting paid, right? So you want to go all in, right? Naturally you want to go all in because it's a very strong hand, but then you run into a 4 of a kind or a higher full house, and then you get bankrupt, right? So you can't always get greedy. So you got to pick your spots, and you want to give yourself an opportunity to pull the parachute, especially if you're bluffing, or if you don't want to risk too much. So you only want to risk enough to win the pot, nothing more. So when I play Texas Hold'em poker, I try to never go all in. If I go all in, like, it's one thing. If I go all in and I have lots of chips, and if I'm the chip leader, then like I have there's no risk of me being busted. So I'm willing to risk more at that point. But if I go all in, usually I have them dominated, and I'm wanting them to call, right? But at the same time, like, I could be getting greedy, and they could have a higher full house or a higher flush or what have you, right? And that can end up busting me. But that's just part of the game of poker, right? It's part of the math, right? Because the beauty about Texas Hold'em poker, I like the most, because you only get 2 cards that are different from your opponents. So luck is less of a variant in Texas Hold'em poker compared to other, like, say, 7-card stud, where you get 7 cards, right? So if they're luckier than you, they get 7 cards, or they could be luckier than you all night, right? So in poker, a beginner might win the race, like win the sprint, but the more seasoned professional poker player is going to win the marathon. So I'll just show you, so you can take some of my advice, because I've been ranked professional 4 times on a real money website. So I'll just show you the proof of that. I'll just show you some of my I just gotta find my videos here, my screenshot. So here we go. So here's poker. So this is so on this particular website, this is a play money website, I've been ranked all-star, so that's 2 leagues above professional. And so here's on that website, in the continental tournament, I played 2 tournaments and I won one of them. That's the one that I'm most proud about. So now I just gotta see where I think it's under screenshots. I'll have to save this here. So the best thing about having a phone is you could film and record, and to learn from that information in the future, right? So you could utilize information. Okay, so no, I just gotta find it. I gotta pause it. So here's the title of the YouTube channel. If you typed in Chris Meyer Diggins Poker 16, you might be able to come up with that. But I downloaded it here, so it's on downloads. So here it is. So you can see here where I was ranked professional. This was a real money website, and so now I'll just show you this. This is pretty impressive. Like So I was my winning percentage was 32.05%. You can see my win rate was at 32.5%. So that means I was playing five-handed poker. So five-handed poker, the luck is 1 in 20, or pardon me, 1 in 5, which is 20%. So I was playing 12.05% above luck, right? So, and I didn't always have the best hand, so I had to bluff, right? I had to learn how to bluff because I want to eat, right? So, and a lot of people, they they're into the hand when they have a flush or a straight draw. They chase till the river, but then you could beat them on the river because they no longer have a winning hand. So that means basically, if you have a flush on the flop, you have 2 cards that you're aware of, and then 3 cards that, you have 2 cards in your hand that you're aware of, and then 3 community cards that you're aware of on the flop. So that means you're aware of 47 cards on the flop. The way I do my outs and pot odds is pot odds are the same, but outs is a little bit more conservative. So I'm less likely to get burnt by the stove analogy, right? So meaning so there's 47 cards that I'm aware of, and now with a flush, an open-ended flush draw, pardon me, you have 9 outs, right? You have 9 cards. Like if there's a 4-card flush, you have 9 outs to make out of the 47. So 9 divided by 7 is a little bit less than 1 in 5, right? So most of the time you're gonna miss with a flush draw, right? You're gonna miss 4 times out of 5 basically, and you're only gonna hit once, right? But there are other outs that you could have, right? Because you have 2 cards in your hand, right? So if you had ace king, you would have you'd have 3 aces possibly to make the best hand, and then 3 kings to possibly make the best hand, right? So you would have you'd have 15 outs out of 45. So you're still your odds on the flop are only 1 in 3 to win, right? So that means now if you have $1,000 pot, mathematically it only makes sense for you to call a bet as long as it's less than $333, right? If you a $400 bet, you're going to be you're not going to be a profitable player long term, because you're playing above luck or above the math, right? Like your math is only 1 in 3 to win, but you're playing 2 and 5 to win, right? Like so 2 and 5 is larger than 1 and 3, right? So if you learn a little bit about fractions, but if you like poker, all you need to know is basic fractions, like 1 and 5, 1 and 6. That's about as much as you need to know, and then to a half, like so a half, 2/3, 3/5, 4/5, and then about that's good enough math. And then so the pot odds would mean so if I made $1,000 bet in a $1,000 pot, you wouldn't want to call most of the time, because you're going to lose money long term if you make that decision 100% of the time. You're going to be mathematically a long loser. You're going to be losing $666 long term per 1,000, right? So that in that analogy when I mentioned earlier, where you'd want to call the $200 bet, because you're going to be profiting $133 per 1,000 long term, right? So do the math. And the best thing about poker, you don't always need the best hand. So you can make it's tricky, because you can make good short-term decisions that are poor long-term decisions, right? So if you're thinking he's bluffing, right, like get some information. Like the weaker the hands that they show, the less strength you need to have to call them historically, right? As long as they show a historical behavior, right? But their historical behavior doesn't mean they didn't evolve and grow each session as well, right? So it's tricky, right? So it depends on the session, and because there's psychological tells. I just got to see how much time I have, so I got to go in. But anyways, there's psychological tells, and so I'm just gonna upload this video. So stay tuned to my poker strategy series. Now, my next poker video, I'll start filming and showing you some of the math.